coaches of Idaho. My name is Brandon Hill. I'm part owner of 4throws.com. We're a track and field company based out of Spokane, Washington. Here to give you a brief presentation on the Javelin throw, its accessories, and how to pick the right javelin for your throwers. So we'll start with the basics. A woman's javelin is 600 grams. That is the weight. And a men's javelin is 800 grams. Not only do they differ in weight, but the men's javelin is quite a bit longer than the woman's javelin. The javelin has two different kinds of tips. The fully metal one is known as the steel tip, and this red one is a rubber tip. For our purposes in the state of Idaho, all throwing will have the red safety rubber tip on all of the javelins. This is a key point. If any of the throwers that are under your coaching wish to throw in summer track meets, even in the state of Idaho, they will be using the steel tip. But for all high school competitions, they're going to be using the rubber tip. A question I get asked a lot: is a rubber tip javelin just a steel tip javelin with a rubber tip on it? No, it is not. Once a javelin is made into a steel tip, it stays a steel tip forever. Once it is made into a rubber tip, it is made into a rubber tip forever. Because under the rubber tip is not a pointy piece of metal, it's actually a blunted piece of metal so that it doesn't pierce through. If you just put a rubber tip on top of a steel tip javelin, it'll pierce through, as well as it being illegal. This is our basic training javelin. The purposes of a training javelin are, as the name states, just for practicing purposes. We try to make them as economical as possible so that you can equip as much as your track team with javelins. The training javelin comes with a chrome-plated tip, as just a standard grip, and always comes in the same color, which is blue and white. We have different quality javelins, so that is the training javelin. We have a competition javelin as well as the elite javelin. Now you would ask, what's the difference between these javelins? The difference that you're buying in a javelin is its stiffness. The stiffer the javelin, the further the javelin will fly. This is a key point. However, with beginner throwers, stiff javelin or loose javelin, it makes no difference. As a beginner, the javelins will all fly relatively the same. It is once you start to get a district qualifier, a state qualifier, that a stiffer javelin is needed. So for our purposes and the introductory offer that 4Throws is offering all the new Idaho schools, will include a package for just training javelins or competition javelins. Now, our training javelins are made to a high enough standard that most of them can actually be used in competition, but we do not guarantee that. Our competition javelins, however, are weighed and measured to guarantee that when you take it to a track meet, they can be used in competition. But the training javelins weigh almost the same, they look exactly the same, and so they're just a little bit cheaper. We try to provide a wide range of colors, which is unusual for track companies. Usually a track company will pick one color per javelin. Our javelins come in blue and white, as shown in the beginning. And for color variety, in our competition and elite series javelins, we have red, green, yellow, as well as blue. One key point about maintaining a rubber tip is that the most likely way that a rubber tip falls off is once the javelin is impacted into the ground and the ground covers it. By pulling the javelin just straight out of the ground is the most likely scenario that the rubber tip comes off the javelin. This is especially true in mud, as kind of when you put your foot into mud, there's like a bit of a suction cup when you're pulling it out. Is the same concept of once the javelin's in there, it kind of pulls it extra hard when the athlete pulls it out. So the best way to take care of a javelin, especially a rubber tip that's in the ground, is just by wiggling the javelin for 1 or 2 seconds prior to pulling it out will save rubber tips for a long time. Now you'd ask, well, what happens when the rubber tip falls off? Well, the rubber tip falling off and the handle coming undone are the two most likely ways that a javelin will be out of spec. And Four Throws provides a number of opportunities to fix those things. We created a rubber tip replacement package. So depending on the Javelin that you have, we can send you the rubber tips, the gluing material, as well as the instructional material on how to re-glue the whole thing. This is a key point. Each Javelin type has a specific rubber tip to the Javelin. So you can't just pick any rubber tip and expect the Javelin to weigh in correctly. So just between, and these are both made by our company, just between these two Javelins, you have a very big difference in the size and shape of the rubber tip. Both of these are in spec, but just depending on the Javelin, they change. Now, moving on to Javelin accessories. The Javelin event requires the coaches to be heavily monitoring the kids, as these are spears and they are to a degree dangerous. However, a lot of kids may show up to track season to throw the Javelin. So we have a number of tools available that are much, much safer than a real Javelin that you can give to kids and not have to monitor them as closely while you focus on the throwers that are actually throwing. The first of which is known as a Javi. Now, this is designed to replicate the Javelin handle. This is some synthetic cord that you can pull and create stress on. These hooks are used to be put on a cyclone fence on the outside of a track. And then this can be used to pull and practice one's technique under tension. These are relatively inexpensive compared to a Javelin and allow the athlete to still practice. An even cheaper option is Javelin balls. Now there are two kinds of Javelin balls, just a jab ball and a knock-in ball with this point sticking out. Javelin balls weigh close to a Javelin. They can be exactly the weight of a Javelin, or they can be a little more heavy or less heavy depending on if you're trying to train different things. One of the great advantages is these are very cheap. They weigh the same as a Javelin, and you're able to throw them against the wall and have them practice that way, and it's pretty hard for anybody to hurt themselves. Another key advantage as living in the Northwest is sometimes track seasons begin before we're able to go out there and throw for the first couple of weeks. And so a lot of Javelin coaches buy these for their athletes. They can throw them against the gym wall and get practicing in that way. The closest replica to a real Javelin is this thing right here known as the Fin Flyer, made by the Olympian Duncan Atwood. This allows the athlete to practice and mimicking the Javelin throw while making it extremely safe. The Olympian designed this Javelin with safety as the chief concern. So basically the Fin Flyer weighs as much as a football, and the tip of it is about the size of the point of a football. So the premise under this Javelin is that being impacted by the Fin Flyer is going to hurt about as much as being hit in the head with a football. So we're trying to make it as safe as possible. As well as in the back, we have this safety point kind of enlarged at the end to make sure everybody keeps their eyes. One of the key points about Javelin is injury prevention and keeping safety in mind. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that you want beginner athletes to start out with softer Javelins. This is our training Javelin. As you progress, you go up in the meter rating. A meter rating is a way of measuring a stiffness of a Javelin, okay? The key point is that if you have a beginner athlete throw an elite Javelin very stiff, this is a recipe for injury. So they need to progress up on the stiffness of the Javelins. This is where the Fin Flyer comes in, because even, with a 8th grader boy, he's barely going through puberty, come into 9th grade and expected to throw the 800 gram. Sometimes that's a little too stressful on the joints. This is where the Fin Flyer comes in. The Fin Flyer is 450 grams. So it's a heck of a lot lighter than even a woman's Javelin and way lighter than a men's Javelin. As well as it's extremely loose, not stiff at all. So there's no risk of injury to the athlete, boy or girl, picking up the fin flyer, and the safety concerns of him or her hurting anybody else are mitigated with this spear. So it's very well designed, once again by Duncan Atwood, the US Olympian, and I couldn't recommend this more. Fourth Rows is offering an introductory offer that we are selling a package of 4 Javelins to the coaches of Idaho to get this thing started. And a key point about the shipping is that a girl's Javelin costs roughly about $40 to ship a Javelin. Now, a guy's Javelin costs $140 to ship it. Now, the reason why it is exactly $100 difference is because you're being charged a $100 penalty by both UPS and FedEx to ship such a long package. The post office won't even ship them. One thing that we're planning to do is to compile all of the Idaho school orders and put them in a truck, and then we're going to bring them down to Boise at a central location so that all the coaches can come pick up the Javelins and we can cut UPS and FedEx out of the deal and save everybody's money. So I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions at all, please come and contact us. You can contact us at fourthrows.com or our phone number on the business cards and lanyards that we provided to the meeting, and you'll probably talk to me or one of my family members, and we will walk you through the whole process from product quality to how many you should get. Any question, we'd be happy to answer. Thank you, Idaho coaches, and I hope you have a good season.